Today on The Complete Rider, we meet two people who have devoted their lives to rescuing sick and injured animals. And we focus on the life of a horse superstar. That and more on this week's Complete Rider.
Hi everybody, welcome to The Complete Rider. I'm David Paulson.
And I'm Jan Coldwell.
Well, Jan, I understand you recently had an eye-opening experience in Montana.
You bet. We met Catherine and Brian Warrington. Now they care for neglected and abused animals, and we were there when horses arrived from hundreds of miles away.
And it's interesting because they never really know what's coming through the gate next.
We've just had a call from Catherine at 6 o'clock in the morning, and these horses have just arrived from Arizona. Looks like everybody's okay.
Yeah, well, she had gotten about 300 pounds on them in the last 2 months.
They haven't had much food or water over the past 24 hours. Here they are at their new home at the Large Animal Sanctuary in Montana.
You know, I'm amazed. I was afraid we might have some injuries, or they were great. It's taken so much time. This is exciting.
You definitely want to watch that one little...
Red.
Yeah, she'll turn on you real fast.
Yeah.
And you've done this all just out of the goodness of your heart?
For the most part, yeah. Well, she needed somebody to do it. She couldn't get any of the professional haulers to touch it for less than $3,000, and she didn't have anywhere near that much. And I told her I'd do it if she'd buy the gas, so she did. They've all put on, from what I understand, several hundred pounds.
Yeah, easily.
In the last month and a half. They stood in little bitty box stalls for probably, 2 to 3 years is my understanding, with no vet care, no foot care, and minimal feed and water. I think they'll like this a whole lot better than most every place they've been.
The sanctuary has become a safe haven for horses and all kinds of other animals. Catherine has very strong beliefs when it comes to her love of the animal kingdom.
Well, essentially, it's that all life has value, and that we need to, as human beings, start with the lowest among us, the neediest among us, to give them a sense of value and to give children an example of compassion.
Well, Catherine, can you show me a few of these?
Let's
lovely
go
stories?
meet some of our family.
Okay.
We have over 120 llamas. We have 54 goats, 58 potbelly pigs. We have 15 emus. We have 8 peacocks. We have 3 bovines. And we have 108 equines as well.
And every one of the animals here that you have out in the sanctuary are here to live out
The rest of their
final
lives, until such a time that their quality of life is no longer there. And an animal will tell you. You can see it in their eyes. Obviously would be something that would be a tragedy that would happen, and they would have to be put down. But otherwise, they have absolute every right to be alive so long as they want to be, and their quality of life can be supported.
Later in the day, Dr. Hoversland came by to check out the new arrivals.
They were blood tested for the health permit to get here, and to do a Coggins test, to make sure they were disease-free. We're not used to them looking this well when they get off the truck here. Sure this is the right truck?
Yeah, they were destined to be slaughter animals, so they were rescued.
It costs over $150 a day to feed all of the animals here at the Montana Large Animal Sanctuary. About 130 of those dollars go to feed just the equines. We're going to meet some of those special horses that have special needs, but first it's to feed the llamas. Hey, Rindy. Hey, girl. How old do you think this gal is? Well, she's 38 years old. She's the oldest horse here out at the Montana Large Animal Sanctuary. I'm sure she has a few stories to tell. But then again, there are hundreds of other heartfelt stories to tell here, too.
This is Sugar, and Sugar is about a year old now. She was rescued last year when the owners called us and said that they had a little miniature they had sold for $1,000 and that she had gotten her leg caught in a smooth wire fence and she had cut it. Aren't you beautiful? Yeah. Are you beautiful? Yes, you are. She was going to be killed because they could not afford the veterinary care, the aftercare of the wire cut. She had 3 inches of bone exposed on her leg, and it required extensive, just the bandaging alone was $3,000 or $4,000 to purchase it for her being soaked every day and rebandaged. So, and we had to do that for 8 or 9 months. She lost the use of the leg totally. So, and that's why she came into sanctuary.
The use of the leg's pretty well gone. The tendons are pretty well fused.
Yes, she's so mild-mannered. She's not bothered by this at all.
She's essentially 3-legged, but she runs like the wind and gets along beautifully.
There you go.
This is Stormy, one of our success stories. He is completely regained his 350 pounds. He was a full stallion when he came in. He's now a gelding. He has a prolapse penis and sheath, which looks pretty awful, but actually causes him no problems. Everything is functional. The prolapse was, we think, was caused from an overuse of a drug called acepromazine. And it causes, it says on the jar, it causes prolapses in older geldings and stallions. We had to put him on a special diet. We had to build up the enzymes in his intestines with probiotics, and so that he could start to absorb, because he hadn't had any grains ever. And he had very little hay, if any, for a very long time, as the pictures show. And he is a blue blood Morgan, and he's quite magnificent. At the abuser's place, he was in a stall that was about 12 by 20, and that's where he had lived all his life in horrible conditions. So with the starvation for that long a time, he didn't have a good prognosis at all. He's very, very happy and well adjusted here. Are you ready? Are you ready to go back out? Come on, let's go back out, come on.
Catherine believes in introducing children to animals at a young age. She teaches them to value and respect all life without paying too much attention to the outside.
That's why she's so skinny.
Exactly. The owners brought her in because they couldn't afford to go through the veterinary cycles and the investigation with the vets that needed to be done. And they just didn't know what to do for her. They didn't have a barn that allowed her to get out of the weather, and so they wanted her to be able to be cared for. And they know that we're going to not stop investigating until we find out what the problem is. Physically, the diarrhea is causing her to she's not absorbing any of her food that she eats because of this constant irritation in the intestines. So she doesn't gain any weight, but she's maintaining her weight.
Come on, sugar baby. Come on. Come on. There you go. Good girl.
So that's why she's here and she's still alive. And because the vet had told these other people to, you could just put her down. Why bother? She's older. What value does she have? But she's a life, and we'll just go through it with her.
It was a cold night in the dark of winter when Catherine made the trip to rescue Sweet Music and Schnookums.
I got them home, and we took the blanket off Sweet Music, and she was completely skin and bones, no muscle. And she fell out in the run-out off her stall, and she couldn't get back up. Schnookums, her buddy, had grabbed her by the nape of the neck while she was down, just trying to get her to stand up again, because they know that when they go down, they can't be down for very long. We called a vet, and the vet came out. I said, if this is starvation, then we give her a chance. If this is organ failure, we will put her down humanely. But I said, you have to draw blood and call me right back. So the vet called back. He told me, sure enough, it was starvation. She was absorbing all of her muscle tissue to stay alive. It was the only source of food was her own body. So he said, give her some, what we call it's a tea we made. We made it out of warm water and red cell and electrolytes. And I got a 60cc syringe and sat with her head on the bale of straw and just fed her as much of it as she would take. And it was very warm. He wanted her to try to heat up inside. So we got her settled for the night, said goodnight, came out the next morning. Her head was up, her eyes were bright. She still could not stand up, but she had made the choice that she wanted to live.
Oh, Catherine and Brian, it seems that all of the great horses that are going to be living out the rest of their lives here with you are just really happy and very lucky to be here with you.
It's an honor for us too.
It is.
On this week's Legend, we meet the famed Palomino horse, Golden Cloud, and his equally renowned rider, Leonard Sly. Well, truth is, you might know the rider better as Roy Rogers. And the horse was billed as the smartest horse in the movies. His name was Trigger.
The Roy Rogers Show, starring Roy Rogers, King of the Cowboys, Trigger, his Palomino.
Trigger, the golden Palomino that was smarter than most people and definitely smarter than any bad guy. Their teaming up would be serendipitous. Then Leonard Sly had changed his name to Roy Rogers, and Republic Pictures was grooming the 26-year-old as one of their new leading men.
They decided he needed a really nice-looking horse for the movies, and so they brought Hudkins Stable in the valley, in San Fernando Valley, brought out what they call the cast horses, which are all the really pretty, nice, good conformation horses. And they had them all lined up, and Dad was to go along and pick one out. He'd heard rumors in the studio that there was this new thing called True Color or color film, and he thought, you know, gee, if I happen to luck out and make it in this business, he said, and it is color, it turns to color film. He said, wouldn't it be great to have something other than a black or a white horse? Trigger was the third horse he got on, and he climbed aboard and kind of whispered in Trigger's ear, and they took off down the street. And he turned him, and he said, Trigger turned on a dime and gave me 9 cents change. Dad saw something in Trigger that he hadn't seen in any other horse. There was a spark and a liveliness, and Trigger was always ready to go. He was always watching. You could see his eyes were constantly moving. And he had this beautiful, long, flowing mane and tail, and just constantly ready to pounce. He's like a cougar, Dad said. His muscles were always ready to go, and I think that's what Dad really liked about him. He had a spark and a character that he had not seen in any other horse. And a lot of the chase scenes and things, he was just really good at that.
The relationship between Roy and Trigger became legendary. They worked like a well-oiled machine.
Us kids, you say, I think Dad loves that horse more than he loves us, which really wasn't the case. But you know, when you spend your entire life, basically from the time you're 26 years old, you know, and Trigger was like 4 at the time, and he had Trigger till he was 33 years old. You can't spend that much time with an animal and not feel like he's part of you. It's like a father and son. It's a love that's genuine, that's unconditional, and when you've got somebody you can work with like that hour after hour, I mean, it's no wonder that he was so upset when Trigger died, because it was like losing one of the family.
Trigger was known as the smartest horse in the movies. It seemed like there wasn't anything the remarkable Palomino couldn't do.
I don't think there was anything that they asked him to do that he couldn't do. I mean, he could untie knots, he could open doors, he could get into bed, he could pull covers over him, he could fluff the pillow, I mean, he could kiss the girls. I mean, all in all, I think there was somewhere around 75 to 80 different things that they could have him do. It's amazing, it really was amazing.
Hi, Trigger.
Trigger was never bred as a stallion.
Dad was afraid that if he found out that there was something better than work, that he might like that better than working and then get a little mean. He didn't want that to happen, especially when he was working around children. He would take him into the hospital wards and put rubber shoes on him and take him right into the lobby of the hospital and up on an elevator up to see the kids and walk around. He was just afraid that if he did that, something might go wrong and Trigger's personality would change, and he didn't want to take that chance.
When the movies were done and the television was over,
Roy thought it was time to give his longtime partner his due.
Dad wanted Trigger to retire, and of course, well, he used him all through all 88 of his pictures, and then he used him all through the 100 of the half-hour series. And Dad just felt that he'd worked very hard for a long time, and that he needed to retire. So in the late 50s, Trigger, basically got turned out to pasture, but he lived a great life.
Now, for future generations, on permanent display at the Roy Rogers Museum off Route 66 in Victorville, California, the great Palomino stands rearing up in a pose all his faithful fans remember him best. The shine of Trigger's star has never dulled. A true horse icon and a bigger-than-life horse legend.
I'm an equine kinesiologist. I do structural work. When you use the muscle testing and the way that whole thing works, it's a little bit off-putting because we truly don't understand it.
Holly's looking for a weak spot on the horse's electrical field. A weak test will allow Holly to push Dagmar's elbow downward, pinpointing the spot that needs adjustment.
Well, a boo-boo. We'll have to fix this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply force that will cause the pelvis to shift forward and just hop a little, all right? And I'm going to do this the easiest way I know, which means I'm going to do it with my shoulder. I can do it with a mallet and a cane tip, but... And it's not a function. There, we get a nice square halt. All of a sudden, the legs are the same length. And that sounds so dumb. But if you get the horse right, this is how an adult horse stands. Come on around, Dagmar. Let's see if we got it. Ugh, there's another yucky. Right here. This I'm going to use my mallet and my cane tip for. This is a really common displacement, too. Okay. Look at that neck. I love that neck. Look at that. Now he's yawning. Yes, I can put a horse to sleep. I thought I knew a lot about horses when I started, and there's just so much to know. And the horses come over and they say thank you. Everybody has something they were put on the planet to do. This is my thing.
Jan, we receive email from all over, from people asking questions about their horses. I understand you got one this week from Ontario.
I do, from Julie Lambert. And Julie asks, I have a pony that has never been handled. How can I approach and halter him without startling him or making him nervous? Well, Julie, let's ask our expert, Gail Greeno.
Here we have some horses out in the field. We have a yearling that is galloping away from us. And this could take a while. It could take a few hours. You have to be very, very patient. They have to learn to trust you. Okay, right now I'm just trying to entice the babies in with some food, with some grain. Get them a little bit curious. And the one I want is actually way over there. So I have to be a little patient and let him come into me. Here he is now. Give him a little food with the hand. Ooh. 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 And just work very calmly and slowly. Whoa. And entice them by feeding them from the hand. And then very slowly put the halter on. Okay, if they fly away, let go. Try it again by taking food out with you. Do not allow them to drag you around.
Well, thanks for watching, and next week we've got a great show for you.
We'll see you next week on The Complete Rider.